everyone, welcome to Backstory Sessions. I'm your host Matt. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Hey everybody, it's Pat, and I want to welcome you to this episode of Backstory Sessions. I'm joined today by my co-host, Matt. Hey, Matt.
Hey, Kat. Hey, everyone. How are you?
Today we have with us an actor, Mike Manning, but a little twist in that he was on a reality TV show before his acting career, I believe.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, wasn't it like acting on the show?
And that's a question I want to ask because you hear that a lot about reality TV. They always say, it's like scripted or edited so much that it changes the plot or what's the reality. It changes it so much because really you could take any situation and edit it to appear the way you want it to, right?
Yeah, of course.
And so I'm very curious to see, how he feels about that and what was his experience with it. But we haven't had, have we had any reality TV people before?
I think we might have, but I don't remember who.
Yeah. Well, this is, I think, how he got his start into acting. So it's going to be really interesting to see. Do you like reality TV shows? Do you watch them?
I don't watch a lot of TV, period. So I'm going to say no.
Well, I've been sucked into a lot of them over time.
What's your favorite at the moment?
Well, like right now, I'm not really. I don't really have any. I'm not watching any, but I've watched the Kardashians.
Oh Lord!
I've seen Mom. I've watched 30 Day Fiance. I've watched that. What's the one like Married at First Sight or whatever?
Yeah.
So, I've watched all kinds of shows like that. Kate plus 8. When she's still married to John and after, like all that. Honey Boo Boo.
God.
Yeah, Dance Moms. I could just go on and on with I'm just sucked right into reality TV. Oh, Bret Michaels. What was that one where,
Oh, Rock of Love.
Yes, Rock of Love. I was sucked into that one too. I think I love him. But The Bachelor, Bachelorette. So a lot of them, I have watched.
So what one didn't you watch?
Well, the most current one that I watched would be Sister Wives.
Oh, okay.
So, they're all splitting up and leaving Cody finally. Yay. Except for one, the favorite Robin. Not my favorite, but, it appears to be his favorite. So, I also, though, Dateline, where they, not Dateline, but,
48
Catch
hours.
a Predator or whatever,
Yeah.
where they go and, trick people that are going to show up and, meet underage kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I watched those kind too, and I don't know, I'm fascinated by people and people's stories and how crazy things get. But I'm also very skeptical of most of it. I'm always this is not really the way it happens. This is just for ratings.
Yeah, I'm sure that happens in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Did you watch A Real World?
So I have watched some episodes of that, at different seasons, but I don't think I ever watched the whole season. It's kind of like Survivor and all of that too. I'll start, and then you know,
Then there'll be another reality show on that you have to watch.
it's just I don't know. I mean, the ones that you have watched, do you like? Are you sucked in at all to them,
Yeah, of
or
course. I mean, I remember watching a few of the seasons of The Real World on MTV when that first came out because it was new and interesting, and then like all the other networks picked up on it and they tried to have, you know, similar types of shows, and um, now it's just like so saturated with all the different ones that are on that it's like I don't, yeah, I don't watch it anymore.
I think like in some ways it seemed like that TV became reality TV. Like there was more reality TV shows than you know, like
Yeah,
ones that made up or wrote.
yeah. I mean, like when MTV's had the first season of The Real World. I mean, after that they stopped showing like music videos, and it wasn't MTV anymore. It was like RTV, reality TV.
Yeah, I missed that because I loved music videos.
Yeah, I mean, they still have other channels that are devoted to music, but certainly not the way it was in the beginning, for sure.
No,
But anyway,
well, I'll be curious about that. As to how much of it he felt was scripted, and also, you know, was it what was it about that show um, that made him want to continue, on TV or movies, like in a career of acting? Was it a good experience, a bad experience? I mean, that's another question for you. Like, if you were on a reality show, would you feel like that would be a good experience for you or a bad one?
it depends. I don't know if like I would be a good character or a bad one, and then there's the whole like uh, how the public responds to you and that sort of thing.
Well, and you've got like a camera in your face, like,
Yeah, yeah,
every every place. So everything, you do, like you have no privacy. And I just wonder, like, how would that really be?
yeah. I couldn't imagine.
Yes, so he is very popular with a lot of Disney Plus, I believe, TV shows too.
He was also on, maybe he still is. I don't know, but um, also on one of the soap operas, I believe.
Yes, and we're going to actually, in the group, have a poll about the favorites to see if they liked him better in reality TV or, Disney or like all the different things. And he's definitely easy to look at. He's got that look that just someone that you would think like needs to be on TV. He definitely
Okay.
very photogenic, and I think that's obvious to everyone. So I can't wait to talk to him and to see like what it is it like to have a life where you're a reality star, a soap opera star, a Disney star,
Yeah, yeah,
like all of that is very very interesting to me. And how do you deal with that? And then what do you do next? Like,
yeah. I think he's got a new movie coming out.
well, I also wonder like how much of like if you stay on a reality show for a while, coming back out into the real world, from the real world, like what kind of adjustment is that? Like, are you still like, like, are you still like posing for the looking around for
Right.
cameras,
Yeah.
like get this side,
Right.
whatever.
Oh, I can use the bathroom without a camera.
Yes, or I need to make drama here,
Yeah.
like we need this shot. I imagine it would be an adjustment to come back.
Yeah, because I think it's like 24/7 for however long, at least 3 4 months, I would guess.
Well, I can't wait to, just hear all about that. So, we have a million questions, and I'm sure he's going to have a million one answers.
All right. Well, yeah, let's talk to him and find out.
Mike Manning, I want to welcome you to this episode of Backstory Sessions. We're really honored to have you as our guest today.
Well, thank you very much, and I am honored to be here.
So, you have the movie The Way Out, which is premiering digitally on February 10th. And we definitely want to hear all about that. And we have a lot of questions. But since we are backstory sessions, I'd like to get a little bit of your backstory first. Where did you grow up? Are you originally from California or?
No. So I grew up in Colorado, and that's where I spent most of my life. I was born in Florida, but we moved to Colorado when I was really young, and that's where I guess, quote unquote, became a person. And I was always interested in theater. I would do theater and acting from a young age, and just because I loved that escapism and I loved using my imagination like that. But in my mind, I didn't have any professional actors that were making a living being actors. I didn't have them in my orbit. So it never really crossed my mind that I was even able to make a living as a professional actor. And then I was going to school for business, and my best friend at the time, John, he came up to me and he said, "Hey, Mike, there's this open casting call for a reality show. Will you come with me and help me get on the show? Because I know you used to do auditions and stuff." And I said, "Yeah, sure, whatever." I didn't really think much of it, and I followed him to get on the show. And in the old, Johnny Depp fashion, they cast me instead of my friend, and then the rest is history. And I even at that time, I don't think that I knew just how dramatically my life would change. So I did the show, and the show's called Real World. It was on MTV, and
Yeah.
and it's an unscripted reality show. And then I was actually finishing college while the show was airing. I still didn't realize how much that show would change my life, and I had a manager reach out to me from Los Angeles, and he said, "Hey, I saw you on the show. I think you have a great look. Do you have any acting experience?" And I said, "Well, I haven't really done it since I was little. I used to do theater and plays and everything like that." And he said, "Well, I think you should move to Los Angeles." And he gave me this whole thing on how he was going to make me famous in 6 months. And I, would move to Los Angeles and I would be the next big movie star. And I believed him, and I packed up my car and I drove out to Los Angeles. And certainly didn't happen in 6 months, but a decade later, I think I'm pretty happy with where things have ended up.
Oh, what did your family think when you told them that you're moving, you know, in 6 months you're going to be a big star? And um, were
Yeah,
they
they hated the idea. They hated it. My mom, I'm a sort of a mama's boy, so my mom was sad to have me leave the house. And my father he's in business, but when he was younger, he was a musician. So I think they released their first album when he was like 14, and for a good chunk of his life, he thought that he was going to be a professional musician, and then it didn't work out that way for him. So he understood what it felt like to pursue a dream and then to sort of go back to having a quote unquote real job. And so, he was like, "Mike, it's going to be really challenging. I don't, and I was a good student. I had a lot going for me in terms of job prospects. And so he was being a good dad, and he was like, "Mike, I think that you should take one of these jobs." And and really, focus on sort of using your brain in other ways. And so they were both discouraging me in their own way. And it
Yeah.
wasn't until I had lived here for maybe 3 years and I booked my first bigger project. It was on Disney Channel. It was a movie called Cloud Nine. It was a snowboarding movie. And I think that was the turning point for my parents. When they saw me do that movie, they visited me on set in Utah, and we had a great time. And it was then that they saw me doing what I wanted to do, and making a living out of it. And then they sort of were like, "Oh, we always knew you could do it. We're so proud of you." That sort of thing.
Yeah. So the reality show, let's go back to that. So you went with a friend to help the friend get on or to be cast. Did the friendship survive? One of you being cast and not the other?
Yeah, well, he visited me when I was in Washington, D.C. for the show. And so technically, I fulfilled my end of the bargain. Technically, I got him on the show. It just wasn't in the way that he expected it. But yeah, I saw him a couple months ago. He lives in Australia now. He met a girl, and she's Australian, and he moved there, and they have 2 kids now, and he's doing fine. So we're still friends. We're still close.
What is the experience of being on a reality TV show? What is that like?
It is very intrusive. It is very, sometimes it just takes the energy out of you to sort of be on all the time. But I think for me, it was a really positive experience because it was in Washington, D.C., and having that backdrop portrayed us and helps the cast members sort of come off in a more intellectual sense than I think other seasons of Real World have portrayed their cast members. The season before us was Cancun, and I remember watching Cancun thinking, oh my, like, is this what it's going to be like? Just partying and drinking and, hooking up and stuff all the time? Like, this is a lot. And my grandma's going to see this show. My parents are going to see this show. Like, what did I get myself into? But being in DC, it was right on the heels of Obama being elected and everything else. And I think that MTV wanted a more cerebral cast and a cast that was involved with some of the, serious world issues that were going on at the time. So at least for me, of course we had some crazies in the house and we had the fighting and the, hooking up and everything. And, what makes good reality TV. But for the most part, for my character, they portrayed me as sort of the nice guy and the guy that had his stuff together.
So we often hear like the editing makes things seem a little bit different than it actually happened. Did you feel like the reality of it came across realistically?
I do because and I'm sure that other cast members in the house had a lot more to complain about than I did. They truly did, with editing, help portray me as the good guy and the nice guy and the guy that has had his stuff together. So yes, I agree with you. They shot us for 3.5 months. I think that's the tagline. Like, 8 strangers picked to live in a house and have their lives taped and find out what happens. It's the drama, whatever else. And that truly is the case. We would have cameras on us at all times, people following us around holding cameras, and then there were cameras in the walls and the ceilings. There were microphones in our headboards and our beds. Like, we had no privacy whatsoever. And the show in and of itself is a social experiment. So it's, find out when 8 strangers are put in a place and they have their phones taken away and they can't watch TV and they can't listen to the radio. The only thing that we can do is get to know each other and our likes and our dislikes and our interests and our, similarities and our differences and everything else. And that sometimes it was harmonious and sometimes it wasn't. And I think that's what makes good TV is, they would edit out all the boring moments and then they would show everybody sort of the more fiery moments.
Sure. Did you stay in touch with your castmates? Did they become more than strangers over the 3.5 months?
They really did. So I ended up bonding with a few of my cast members, and over the years, I've gotten closer with some of them and reconnected with some of them. The one that I really have stayed in touch with was Emily, and she's just a wonderful person. She's just such a free spirit, and she and I became the closest, I think, on the show. And then she ended up visiting me in Colorado, and she loved it so much that she ended up moving there. So it made it really easy for us to hang out after that because we
Yeah.
lived in the same state.
Well, I read that you described yourself as a pile of contradictions. So, what did you mean by that?
Oh, wow.
Or
Yeah,
is
what
that
did I
still
mean by
true? Are you a
that?
pile of contradictions?
I think the reason that they cast me on the show, or one of them, is because at the time I was going through a lot of personal issues in my own life. So I was, I didn't know if I wanted to do entertainment and theater and that sort of thing, but I was also doing sports, and I played hockey and I wrestled, and I was very into sports and into, I thought I was going to go into business, and I was very, left brain in that regard. And then I was going through some personal um, some personal struggles figuring out myself at that time as somebody that was so young. And then my own sexuality and attractions and everything else. But then I would go to church every Sunday and pray about it. And then um, I, I don't know. There were a lot of things in my life that back then, I think things have changed a little bit, and people are viewed as being more three-dimensional and having different aspects in their life. But back then, I feel like, especially on television, people expected others to sort of fit a certain mold, fit a certain archetype, and that was really it. And that was really the only breathing room that you got is, oh, you're the action guy, you're the emotional guy, you're the woman that does this, and you're this and this and this. And I sort of stood up and refused to prescribe to any of those. And I was like, no, I'm somebody that does sports, but I'm also figuring out my own sexuality, and I also go to church, and I also have a family and friends that love me, and I also do this and I also do that. Like, I'm not gonna allow you, the audience or whomever is watching, to put me into a box and to label me, because that is my entire point for doing this show, is to show people that uh, those stereotypes are often not even accurate whatsoever.
Did you get any fan mail or letters? Did people write to you or see you later after the show and give you any feedback about maybe what you taking that stand meant to them?
Absolutely. Yeah, I received thousands and thousands of letters, and uh, and I would say 99% of them were really positive and exactly what you just said. It was, hey Mike, thank you for taking a stand. We haven't seen a character like that on television before. I was never able to identify with a character like you until I saw you on the show, and it means a lot to me. And because keep in mind, this was before Glee, this was before Modern Family, this is
Sure.
before so many of these other shows on television that have sort of helped change stereotypes and change hearts and minds and expose audiences to new types of characters. This was before all that. So I think myself and other people, I think we were all hungry for representation in film and television in ways that we hadn't really seen before. And I think the fan response was reflective of that.
And I imagine that you probably learned a lot about yourself as well in taking this stand and, having that time to have the platform even just to, um, discover um, these things that maybe seemed contradictory at first.
Yeah, I really do believe that. And I think that the reason that my story was received so well on the show is because I didn't know at the time what I was doing. I didn't know that I was taking a stand. I didn't know that I would be this example for people. I just went on the show knowing that in my heart was going through some of these things, and I hoped that being away from home and living with these strangers and having this new experience would help me figure out some of those things. And it just so happened that as I was figuring those things out, there was a camera following me around and capturing my story. So I think that
Yeah,
that's why audiences responded the way they did, is because they could tell that it was genuine and I wasn't just doing it for the show.
sure. Well, and it seems like over your career that you've had a lot of diversity in roles. Like you've been in a lot of dramas. You're snowboarding. So were you a snowboarder before?
Yeah, so I grew up in, like I said, in Colorado, and when we moved from Florida to Colorado, my parents wanted to go from being beach people to mountain people. So immediately they signed me up for skiing lessons. And so from maybe 8 years old to I think 13 years old, I was skiing. And then when I was 13, all the cool kids were switching over to snowboards. So of course I switched over to snowboard, and I started snowboarding. And I did that until I moved to Los Angeles, in my early 20s. And then, and now I still continue to snowboard. Now I'm actually going this weekend to Mammoth, and I'm going to snowboard with some buddies up there for the weekend. So it's definitely something that I love doing. And when I shot that Disney movie, one cool thing about that is that we were trained to do some of the tricks by Olympic snowboarders. So it was the best of the best that were training us to perform some of these tricks authentically. And that was fantastic because it's not every day that you get to be trained by Olympic snowboarders to do some of your tricks. So that was really cool. And I've always, in the beginning, I think you hit on a good point. I think when people first move to Hollywood or New York or wherever they go to pursue entertainment, I think in the beginning you just take every job that you can get. You're just trying to work, you're trying to make connections, you're trying to have on-set experience, and you're just saying yes to everything. And then as you move forward in your career, you're able to become a bit more picky in the roles that you take, and not even picky in saying yes or no as they come to you, but picky in terms of seeking them out and making relationships with certain types of writers, directors, producers that are creating some of the things that you want to be a part of. And I can honestly say that I've really done that, especially in the last 3-4 years. I've been very particular in who I surround myself with and the types of creators that I want to work with, because they, I know, are going to be creating the type of content that I'm interested in being a part of.
Well, adding to like the Disney, you've also done religious based soap operas. So really, quite a diverse um, uh, roles. So, did you have a favorite? Do you like dramas more than comedies, or what's a soap opera like? Even
Oh man, a soap opera is a lot of work, and I have tremendous respect for any actor that has been a part of a soap opera. I think soaps kind of get a bad rap because sometimes people turn them on and they're like, "Oh, that's a cheesy moment or a cheesy line or this or that." But soap actors are working incredibly hard. I remember I coming out of the pandemic, so I started filming September 1st of 2020 on Days of Our Lives, and it was my first job back after not working for whatever it was, 6 or 8 months or however long that was, because the entire entertainment industry was shut down. So I was already a bit rusty. I'm like, man, I haven't been on a set in 6 months. And then the first day back, they're throwing me right in with these actors that have worked together for sometimes years and years and decades. And I was the new guy in town, and I was this new character on the show. And to their credit, they welcomed me right away, and they were so nice and so supportive. And I remember the first day I had 7 pages, and then the second day I had 12 pages, and the third day I had 10 pages. And the first week or two was pretty, they were easing me into it. And then I think by week 3, there was one day where I had 40 pages of dialogue that I was doing in one day. And so we go there, they shoot an episode a day. It's insane how much they shoot and how quickly they move. And so I had to show up on set with 40 pages of scenes in my brain, ready to go. And you get one, maybe 2 takes, and that's it. And you move on and you do the best you can. And I just remember that day was one of the hardest days I had ever had up to that point. I remember driving to work and thinking to myself, well, this is the day that you might be fired. You might not have a job after this. And I was like, and I'm okay with that, because 40 pages is insane. And I went there and I did the scenes, and it was a scene where I am essentially confronting my mother about why she never was there for me, and I'm trying to have this new relationship with her. And she, in true soap opera fashion, she likes my brother more than she likes me, and he doesn't know I exist, and neither does anybody else. And it's the whole thing. And we did it. And I worked with an actress named Tamara Braun for those scenes, and she was fantastic, and she really created a space where we could play and really find some nice moments. And then driving home that day, I rolled my windows up, I turned my radio off in my car, and I drove home in silence. And I was like, my brain can't handle any other stimuli. For the rest of the day, I just had 40 pages of words in my brain. And I think I just went home and just went to bed. I was so tired.
Yeah, I can imagine. But they didn't fire you, but they killed you, right?
Oh yeah, they've killed me a few times. Yeah, I was on the show, and then they killed me, and it wasn't anything where I was insulted by it. I knew that the character had a beginning, a middle, and an end, and the arc of that character. And the show writer, the writer creator, Ron Calavari, he did an interview after that, and he said, once I saw what Mike was bringing to his character, it was hard for me to accept the fact that he had to die, but we had to stick to the same storyline. And this character always had to die because he was a bad guy and because of all these things that he did. And so, I knew that was his fate from day one. But it really felt nice that Ron Carlivati acknowledged the fact that I brought a lot to it and did a good job. And the fans did too. The fans were very vocal on Twitter and other places, because soap fans are pretty adamant about what they like and dislike. And a lot of the response was, my character on the show his name was Charlie Dale. And they were like, Charlie, we don't like your character. We don't like what you did, but we really like you, Mike, as an actor. And we hope that they bring you back, and we love you. And the fan response was really, really nice. And so sure enough, they kill me, and that was in, I think, March or April. And then 6 months later, Halloween rolls around, and so they bring me back for a Halloween episode where I rise from the grave, and I'm this zombie, and I terrorize some of the people in the town, and in full zombie makeup and everything, and I do that for a couple episodes. And then I disappear, so they kill me again. And then the next Halloween, they rose me from the dead again, and for a couple episodes to wreak some havoc, and then they killed me again. And then more recently, my mom, played by Tamara Braun, her name's Ava in the show, she starts going crazy and starts seeing her dead son, which is me. She starts just seeing him and having conversations with him, and it's sort of like what Dexter did with Michael C. Hall when that show was on. He would have conversations with his father, and they weren't weird conversations. His father didn't appear in a white sheet as a ghost and everything else. It was very grounded and very real, And that's how it was for this show. I would just appear and have conversations with my mom, most of the time convincing her to do bad things because that's what I did. And then I would just disappear and I would go on my way. So that was a lot of fun. And that was the most recent, I think it was like 14 episodes that I did. That's what I came back for, is just to convince her to do bad things.
Was it different playing your character dead because you're someone's mind? I guess a part of you is like, well, all of you would be controlled by their mind, I guess, um, as
Hmm.
they're seeing
Yeah,
you. You're really
yeah,
not
exactly.
there.
Yeah, exactly. So in those moments, I played myself as I thought she would imagine me. So there were opportunities to just be a little bit more aggressive or a little bit meaner or a little bit more forceful because it was essentially how she was imagining me. And that was an interesting exercise because I tend to,
Yeah.
as an actor, try to bring emotion and sensitivity to my character, even if they're a bad guy doing bad things, whenever I can. And it was interesting because she wouldn't necessarily have done that if she were imagining me. So there were some scenes where I really had to make sure that I took out all of the sensitivity and all the emotion, and it was very just matter of fact, stating facts and trying to be that devil on her shoulder. And it was fun, and it helped me discover different aspects of the character that I hadn't really played with before.
Yeah, I think that would be incredibly interesting to have that opportunity. So that's very cool. Um, you also had part of your career as voiceovers, and I guess that you are very talented with accents. So, how did that interest come to, or opportunity come to you?
Yeah, that was right before COVID. I was My agent emailed me and said, "Hey, they are dubbing a show called Money Heist. It's a show out of Spain, and it's like a bank robber show. And it was in Spain. It's called La Casa de Papel, and they were dubbing it from Spanish to English. And it was at the time, I believe, it was Netflix's most popular non-English show in the world, and it was doing really, really well all over the world. But for some reason, in America and in some English-speaking countries, it wasn't doing well because people prefer to watch it in English. A lot of people in America, I think that's changing, but for a long time, people in the United States didn't like subtitles. So they said, "Hey, for some reason, this dubbing isn't catching on. We're going to hire actors that are not traditional voiceover actors, and we're going to try to redo it and see what happens." And so they had us come in, and we re-recorded season one, which was already out, and then they released it, and the ratings were really, really good. And Netflix says, "Wow, I think we're onto something here." So in the last 5 years, Netflix has really sort of revolutionized the dubbing voiceover space. And they asked me to come back, and I did season two, and then I did season three, and I played Denver. If anybody listening watches that show, Denver is sort of the young hothead, and so I played Denver on that show. And then they asked me to do another show, so I did this show called Lupin out of France, and I did Spectros out of I think Brazil, and then I did there was another show out of Spain, and then there was a show called um, what is it called? I just did Generation 56K out of Italy, and um, there's now, I think I've done a dozen of these shows, and it just became this sort of side hustle, this sort of side gig that I would go in, and I didn't have to get ready. I would just show up in my sweatpants and go and just try to match this character's emotion, and we would have a director working with us, so they would say, "Okay, now try this, try this, try this." And in my mind, it's one of my favorite things to do now. It's almost like actor gym. Like, I go and I show up, and I don't really know the material. I know a little bit about the characters. I haven't seen the show because obviously it hasn't been released yet. And I'll go there and I'll watch the scene a couple times. I'll have a discussion with the director on the emotional beats and where the character's coming from. And then I'll just try to match their emotion as much as possible with my voice. And sometimes I'll like if it's an action scene, I'll do a bunch of those moves like in the edit in the sound bay, and I'll just try to be out of breath, or I'll whatever, to get there and to make it as authentic as possible. And then other times I just have to do what I can to get there emotionally. So I'll be laughing in 1 minute, and I'll be crying a minute later, and I'll be screaming a minute later, and it's really, really fun and really interesting because I've never experienced something like that where I just stand in a dark room with headphones on, trying to do all these emotions at the drop of a hat.
Are the other characters, the voiceover actors, are they there? Are you recording at the same time, or is that like?
No, I'm by myself. I'm by myself in a dark room with the director on the other side of the room behind the glass, and a TV screen in front of me with whatever we're recording over, and that's basically it.
Wow. Oh, that again is another, experience. I'm sure that, like, when you are then back, acting in, like, as a character, not just a voice, I'm sure, like, all of these things are, like, really make you a better actor.
I think they do. I think that any day that you're on set or you're doing something creative or you're trying to tap in into a different emotion in yourself and everything, I think they all that all lends to becoming a better actor and fine-tuning your skills and your I always think of it as adding. I'm really big into comics, and I love Batman and Superman and all all those comics, mostly DC, but I think of it as adding another tool to your tool belt. Like Batman puts on his tool belt and he goes out to fight crime, and he doesn't know which tool he's going to use that day, but he has it all on his tool belt, so whatever happens, he can just sort of pull from that. And that's what I think acting is. You show up to set and you don't really know which tool you're going to use that day, but the more that you can gather and the more you can fine tune what you're bringing to set as an actor, the better prepared you'll be to change things or try things or do things. And I think that's what will show authentically on camera.
Yeah. So the accents that you've had a chance to use in your characters, how do you develop the accents? Like, do you have friends, or do you have a lot of friends that have an accent, Southern, Australian, British, whatever the case might be, that you could pick up on, or how do you prepare?
Well, the first ever accent that I had on a TV show was a show called Crash and Bernstein on Disney XD, and I was playing an Australian foreign exchange student. And for that, my good friend at the time, we're still friends, he's also an actor, his name's Lachlan Buchanan, and he's from Australia. And so I found out about the audition, and I said, hey, Lachlan, can you help me out with this? I'll buy you dinner, come to my place and help me read the script and really teach me how to speak with an Australian accent in a way that's going to be real. And I didn't think I was going to get the role, to be honest. I was just like, you know what, this is a fun opportunity. I can go in, because I was auditioning against guys that were actually Australian, and that's who they were. But I committed, so he helped me out, and so for the next 3 days, I would speak nothing but Australian. When my mom would call me, I'd say, Mom, like, g'day, how are you? And we'd speak nothing but Australian. And then when I was going into the casting office, I would say to the secretary, like, g'day, how are you? And for 3 days, it was just nothing but like Australian, just practicing and trying to get the accent down. And I ended up getting the role.
Wow. He's almost like Rick Cosnett there.
Yeah.
Bring back the memories. We had him.
I think I've been told that sometimes my Australian accent bleeds into New Zealand, like Kiwi. But if I have enough time to, prepare, then I try to not let that happen. And it's funny because I've actually heard I'll be out and I'll hear people from New Zealand versus Australia, and I can pick up where they're from based on their accent, which I didn't used to be able to do that. But I've played. What did I do? Oh, another time where that actually came was in my favor was when I did that Disney movie Cloud Nine. It was one of the biggest things I had done, and originally that role was for an Australian. They wanted somebody that would bring an accent to it, and so again, for the entire casting process, every time I would go in there, I was speaking with an Australian accent. And after the audition and then the callback and then the producer session, I was doing a chemistry read, and it was myself and the other actors in the room that were being cast. So it was me, it was Dove Cameron, who was already cast, it was Luke Benward, who was already cast, and I believe they were still going back and forth between Kiersey Clemens and somebody else. But essentially, I was the last sort of the four leads to be cast, and I was speaking in Australian. And the same casting directors were the casting directors that when they had me in for they had worked at Disney, so they had seen Crash and Bernstein. So when they called me in, they thought I was actually Australian. So speaking Australian for weeks and weeks during this process, I'm in the room, and there is the director of the movie. There are two Disney executives. There's the writer of the script. There's the two casting directors. There's three assistants. There's the other actors. It's a full room of people, and we're doing the scene. And the casting director says, "Hey, Mike, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna stop you there. I think that we are gonna change the role a bit. How is your American accent?" And I and I look at them and I say, "Well, it's fine." And you could have heard a pin drop in that room. Everybody just stares at me and they're like, wait a second, where are you from?" And I said, "Colorado." And that was it. And I think that's what got me the job, because I fooled them the whole time, and I was able to change at the drop of a hat. And that's what you need on set. You need actors that are not gonna, if something changes and you have to shoot something or you have to do a scene a certain way, you need actors that are not gonna panic. And that is that's why they booked me.
That is a really funny backstory. Matt, what do you think of that?
Yeah, that's awesome. I wanted to ask you. So you were on a couple episodes of the wildly popular "This Is Us." Is that true?
Correct.
Okay. So what's the difference of filming something like that as opposed to doing Days? I mean, they're both sort of soap opera-ish. I mean, what was your experience with filming This Is Us versus filming Days?
Yeah, so filming This Is Us versus filming Days, they're both, at the time they were both on NBC.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays is on Peacock, I believe. And unfortunately, This Is Us no longer exists. I was in the sixth and final season for that show.
Right.
But working on a primetime show like This Is Us versus Days, we have more time to do things. And so I'll be on set and we'll shoot, 3 scenes or 2 scenes maybe. Whereas on Days, you shoot an entire episode, 75 pages in a day.
Right.
With a handful of other actors. And so it moves a lot slower, and you're able to get more coverage, and the sets are a little bit more, there's just a little bit more money behind it. So there are higher budget sets, there are more extras, it just feels a bit more authentic to real life. So you can try different things and you can sort of play with the character a little bit more. But it's at the end of the day, it's all the same thing. It's all a bunch of, group of people that come together and agree that they're playing in the sandbox together and creating something, and they agree to the rules of the world. They agree to their characters. They agree to what's happening.
Right.
And then the cameras roll, and then you just see what happens and you see what you get. and sometimes it's magical, and sometimes you go again, and you go until you get what they need. And but I think both shows, for different reasons, were pretty amazing. For This Is
Yeah.
Us, I really liked it because it was more of a comedic character, even though the show in and of itself was a drama. I got to play the Manny, so it was a character that Justin Hartley, he plays a guy named Kevin on the show, and Kevin, in the earlier seasons, his sort of backstory was that he's an actor and he was on this show called The Manny.
Hmm.
And it was a show where he essentially was a male nanny, and he would take care of these kids, and his shirt would always end up off, and he would take his shirt off, and you'd see his six pack, and then people would laugh, and it was a sitcom. And so when I joined the show, I was the new Manny. They were doing a reboot of this sitcom where Justin Hartley was now hired as the dad instead of the Manny, and I was the
Ah,
new Manny. And so most of my scenes were with Justin, and we were sort of just joking around and having fun, and that was really cool because he's a really nice guy, and it was great to work with.
hmm. I read somewhere that you won a couple Emmys. Is that true?
Yeah,
I
congratulations.
did.
Oh,
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
that's
very much.
awesome.
Thank you. Yeah.
Are they?
Yeah, it was a big surprise. I did not expect that to happen. Both Emmys were for a show called The Bay,
Hmm.
that is on Amazon and Peacock and Popstar TV. And the first Emmy was for producing in season 5, and then the second Emmy was for Best Supporting Actor in season 6. So that's a show that, and in that show I play a very different character than I did in Days of Our Lives, a very different character than the movie that I'm assuming we're going to talk about, The Way Out.
yeah,
Um, in that character on the Bay, I play sort of a teacher that moves to town and then ends up having like this romantic fling with a friend of his, and that was really fun because it was the complete opposite of what I was doing on Days, where on Days I was creating chaos. On this show, I was sort of bringing people together and being the nice guy and the supportive friend and everything else. So it was nice to be filming sort of both of those characters and to playing opposite ends of the spectrum like that.
Cool. So tell us about The Way Out. How did you get involved with that project? And um, yeah, so tell us
Yeah,
how it came about.
yeah. So The Way Out is a film that is coming out. It'll be out everywhere digitally February 10th on, I believe it's a platform called Deco, and then it's on Amazon, Apple, Tubi, Google Play, all that sort of thing. All those places. So I found out about the project through a friend of mine who is a producer on the film, Nick Thurr, and he and I had worked together on a film called Slapface back in 2019, and he's a good friend of mine.
Hmm.
So he found the script, and he was working with Barry J., the writer director, on the script, and he sent it to me. And I had some thoughts, and I said, "Hey, man, I think this script is trying to do too much. I think we should cut back on this. Like, as a friend, here are my notes, and there you go. Good luck." And to their credit, he and Barry, a couple months later, they came back to me with the script, and they had made a bunch of the changes. I said, "Wow, this is really interesting. Like, I really love what you guys did with this. Um, okay, cool, great, like good job." And Barry calls me a week later and he said, "Hey, Mike, I have been thinking a lot about this, but I think that I want you to be Shane." And my initial reaction was fear because it is a very intense character and it is a very intense world, and it's a world full of themes of violence and revenge and abuse and everything else. And so I was like, wow, like, do I really want to get into this headspace and to be this character? And so I said, "Barry, thank you so much for asking me. Let me think about it." And I took I took that day and I thought about it. I said, "I'll call you tomorrow." I thought about it, and I called him tomorrow on it, or the next day, and I said, "Yes, I'll do it. I will be this character." I said, "On one condition, I really want to work hard to find the humanity in him and make him a three-dimensional character rather than just a movie villain
Mm-hmm.
where he does bad things and that's his only purpose. And Barry said, absolutely, of course, like I absolutely want you to do that and to bring those elements to Shane. And to Barry's credit, he was very collaborative all the way through from start to finish. I never felt like I was being ignored or that my opinions were not being considered when I was talking to him about Shane. And I think that shows. I think it shows on the screen. It is a film that explores really dark themes and has elements of revenge and violence and all those
Mm-hmm.
things. But I do also think at the end of the day, especially with my character, you understand where that hurt and that pain comes from.
It's because your character, as I understand it, is supposed to be. So there's a young man that's been, I guess, abused. It seems like, uh, all of his life by his father, and um, then the father unexpectedly dies, and he and the son inherits the house and the debts, and so rents out rooms. And your character is one that comes into the house that way, and instead of having, I mean, so your character has the opportunity to be a good influence, I guess, but perhaps
Kind
your
of,
character
yeah.
was.
I mean, yeah, we can say good influence loosely. So Alex, Johnny Bouchamp plays Alex, and I play Shane. And so Alex, his father dies, and he inherits his house. And in order to keep the house, he has to find a roommate. So he finds a roommate in my character, Shane. And Alex, in the beginning of the movie, is very meek and insecure, and he is a recovering alcoholic, and he's just trying to piece his life together. And my character comes in, and in the beginning, things are great. I teach him how to box, I teach him how to work out, I teach him, I talk to him about how alcohol isn't going to fix his problems, and he needs to learn how to stand up for himself. And you think things are going well, and then they take a dark turn when you realize that my character is how do I say this without making it a spoiler? I am seeking revenge on people that have abused other people and have gotten away with it. So it's pretty dark, and you see the ends that Shane, my character, will go to achieve that revenge. And then, I won't ruin the ending, but that's essentially what the film is about. The thing I like about the film is it examines these deep layers of, like you said, the abuse. But both characters have been abused when they were younger. And Johnny's character, Alex, he coped with that by turning to, alcohol and possible drug abuse and everything else. And my character went the other way. So Johnny's character hurts himself. My character hurts the world. He learns how to train, he learns how to fight, and he learns how to stand up for himself. And he takes his trauma out on other people. So it's two characters that have experienced certain things, and they deal with it two very different ways.
So for the viewers watching it, if they are the one that's been abused, or if they've been the abuser themselves, what do you think the message they'll take away from that might be?
Well, I think the message, it's number one, it's a cautionary tale to not let your abuse define you. And just because you are abused, it doesn't mean that that is who you are. It's a thing that happened to you, and you can pick yourself up and you can move past it and you can find, quote unquote, the way out. So I think that is the main message. Um, I think the other message is that it's a cautionary tale. If abuse does happen or something bad happens in your life and you don't talk to people and you don't seek help and you try to keep it all bottled up inside, then it could manifest itself in very dark, awful ways. And so I think that it's a reminder to all of us to communicate and to find ways to work past abuse and to find ways to talk to people and be there for people emotionally and everything else, to not let situations of abuse or whatever ruin our lives.
Do you like movies that address these social issues? Because I really do like those kind, but they can be
I do,
very
yeah.
different.
I do, both as an actor and as a producer. So I also have a production company, and traditionally I started in documentaries. So producing was never something that I intended on doing. It was sort of something that found me, and I randomly found out about this documentary that was happening, and I ended up being involved, and we ended up selling it to Showtime, and it came out around the same time that Disney movie that I was telling you about came out. So overnight, I had some press come out that was like, "Oh, Disney actor is a social cause documentary producer," and people started reaching out to me to produce these documentaries, and which was a blessing. So I started producing these documentaries, and exactly what you're talking about. I fell in love with producing film that have has a certain social message to it, and they were many different uh, messages. There was one documentary I produced that was featured Halle Berry and Rosario Dawson and John Bon Jovi, and we interviewed all of them for our film, and it was fantastic. And it was a film about youth homelessness. And I worked with a director that had been previously homeless himself, and it was great, and it was a great experience for me. The other film that I was mentioning earlier in this chat, called Slapface, that film, if you go and watch Slapface, it has everything that you would want in terms of a thriller. If you turn it on and you want to have a thriller, like a monster that lives in the woods and this little boy befriends this monster, and that's all you know about the movie, then you're going to get everything that you want in terms of that escapism and those scares and everything out of a thriller. But at its core, the movie has a strong anti-bullying message to it. And that is the stuff that I like to produce. I like to produce content that is commercial, and I never want to have the audience feel tricked. So I never want to, feel like they're going to see one thing and I try to, hit them over the head with a theme. But I do like to infuse the stories that I tell with certain themes and messages in ways that feel organic and in ways that don't take away from that escapism and those characters and everything else that the audience expects when they go see the movie.
Well, these are certainly the types of things that I enjoy. So I am glad that you have become involved. It seems like in a way by fate. That you were able to produce more and more things that address issues that are important and make the world more aware, which is kind of like the same thing you wanted to do when you went on The Real World. So I guess it's a full circle in a way.
Yeah, it really is. I think that what Real World was for me is I really feel like it was the universe picking me up and putting me back on the train tracks that I was supposed to be on. And I think at my core, ever since I was little, I've always loved story, and I've always loved using story to communicate certain things. And I was doing it, like you said, without even knowing it on Real World. And then I moved to Hollywood to pursue acting, and I started doing it unknowingly, producing these documentaries. And now I'm doing it, by choosing certain acting roles and by writing certain scripts or by finding certain scripts to produce. And you're right. I think it has come full circle, and it is something that continues to be really important to me. And I honestly think that it sounds kind of corny, but I think that is what I was built to do.
Yeah, it does sound like it from your story. So it's fascinating. I really have enjoyed having you as a guest and hearing all about these layers of you, because there's definitely more than just the actor that we see on screen. So I'm glad that we were able to hear more about you. Um, Matt,
Well,
do you
thank
have
you. Thank you
any
for having me.
closing?
I just wanted to say I saw that you have like I don't know, probably 15 or so projects in the works. Anything that you want to talk about with those, or do you want to wait to come back on another episode and talk about it then?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to talk on another episode
Okay.
about some of those things when I have more info. But yeah, there's a lot of exciting projects I have coming out next year. No, not next year, this year.
Yeah.
We're in 2023 already.
Now,
This year. So yeah, there's a romantic comedy I have coming out. There's an action movie I did with Randy Couture that I have coming out. Season 7 of The Bay just posted, and that's on Peacock and Amazon and Puffstar TV. So yeah, I'm hoping to continue to create content that people that follow me, anybody that's a fan, is going to enjoy, and I would love to be back to talk to you about those when I have more info.
You are certainly a busy man from what I see.
Well, I try.
Yeah. Yeah, so come back anytime. I know you have to get going, and we really appreciate your time with us, and yeah, some really good insight into your thought process with acting and some of the roles you've been in, and it's been really, really interesting for sure.
Thank you very much, Matt, and Kat also. It's been a pleasure talking to you both, and I look forward to next time.
All right.
all right.
As always, if you have any questions, concerns, or comments, you can send those to Kat at iWritePlays@outlook.com, or you can write to me at backstorysessions@gmail.com or Matt at level11ventures.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.